Have you ever been to a huge outdoor concert? You know that feeling, right? The energy, the music, the crowd. But have you ever stopped and wondered, how do these things even exist? How do we go from just a few musicians playing in a field to these massive weekend-long cities built just for sound? Well, today we're going to crack open the original blueprints and see, piece by piece, how the modern music festival was built. Let's get into it.
Now, really, think about it for a second. For just one weekend, a festival is basically a pop-up city. You've got tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. You need stages, massive sound systems, food, water, and you have to keep everyone safe, all in a place that was probably just an empty field a week ago. It is a giant, complicated puzzle.
And yeah, that puzzle was not solved overnight. We're talking decades of trial and a lot of error. Every era added a new page to the festival blueprint, building on what came before. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through those pages, from the very first rough sketch to the super high-tech designs we see today.
Okay, so Chapter 1. Where did this all begin? Well, way before rock and roll, the first piece of the puzzle was actually put down by jazz and folk musicians. Events like the Newport Jazz Festival proved this totally revolutionary idea. People absolutely loved listening to music outdoors. They travel for miles just to hang out in a field, meet people, and hear their favorite artists live. This simple concept, it laid the groundwork for everything.
But when rock music crashed under the scene, the whole blueprint changed. It wasn't just about the music anymore. For a whole generation of young people back then, a rock festival was an escape. It was a place where they could finally be themselves, away from the strict rules of parents and school. It was all about freedom, community, and this powerful brand new sound.
All right, let's jump forward to the late 1960s, because this is where the festival blueprint went from a kind of cool idea to a full-blown phenomenon. The whole thing didn't just catch on, it literally exploded all over the world, and it created these moments that would end up defining an entire generation.
This timeline here shows how fast it all happened. Each one of these events added a critical new piece to the blueprint. So in '67, Monterey Pop showed everyone, hey, a rock festival can be a huge professional thing. Then, just 2 years later, you have Woodstock, which became this legendary symbol of peace and music. And by 1970, the Isle of Wight Festival in the UK proved this wasn't just an American thing anymore. The festival was officially a global force. But to really get a sense of the change, let's look at the numbers.
So, Monterey Pop in 1967 had around 30,000 people. Now, at the time, this was a massive success. It was proof that, yeah, thousands of fans would totally show up for a whole weekend of rock music. But it was just the beginning.
And then came Woodstock in '69. The organizers? They were hoping for maybe 50,000 people. Instead, over 400,000 showed up. It created a traffic jam that was over 10 miles long. The sheer number of people turned what was supposed to be a music event into this historic, chaotic, but kind of beautiful moment that absolutely nobody saw coming.
And just when you thought it couldn't possibly get any bigger, it did. 1 year later, all the way across the ocean in England, the Isle of Wight Festival drew an estimated 600,000 people. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire population of a major city like Boston, all gathered together on a small island just to listen to music. The scale had become absolutely mind-blowing.
Okay, so when you have crowds that big, the original blueprint is suddenly way out of date. You can't just use the same old equipment or the same rules. Promoters and engineers had to literally invent brand new solutions for two huge problems. First, how do you make sure everyone can actually hear the music? And second, how do you keep everyone safe?
To be heard by that many people, the sound systems had to get a major upgrade. Engineers started building literal walls of sound. Stacks of speakers so enormous they needed their own trucks just to move them. They also needed these super complex mixing boards, the desks with all the knobs and sliders, to perfectly balance every single instrument for an outdoor space. And of course, an empty field doesn't have power outlets, so they had to haul in giant generators just to turn everything on.
And at the same time, a whole new safety blueprint had to be written because early festivals learned some really hard lessons. Organizers figured out pretty fast they had to provide basic stuff like free water and professional medical tents. They invented new rules like using steel barriers to manage the pressure from the crowd, and they started working with emergency services. These rules, which seem totally obvious to us now, were created from scratch and are standard at every single major event today.
All right, let's fast forward a bit to the 1990s. Music was changing, again. The huge stadium rock of the 70s and 80s was making way for alternative rock and grunge. And with this new sound came a totally new idea for what a festival could be. The blueprint was about to get a major rewrite.
So, the classic model, the Woodstock way, was one massive event in one remote location for a whole weekend. But then, this new festival called Lollapalooza came along and just flipped the entire script. Instead of making all the fans travel to the festival, Lollapalooza brought the festival to the fans. It was a traveling tour that would stop in different cities for just one day, bringing all these new alternative bands to kids all across the country. It was a complete game changer.
And now, we've arrived in the 21st century. The next page of the blueprint, it's all about digital technology. I mean, the core idea of gathering in a field is still the same, but tech has completely transformed pretty much every other part of the experience, and it's solved problems that plague festivals for decades.
Just think about that for a second. An entire festival's worth of logistics can now live right inside your phone. It's your ticket to get in, it's your map to find the stages or your friends, and it's your wallet to buy food. This one little device solves so many of the headaches that the first festival goers had to deal with.
So, let's look at exactly how this works. Remember the old nightmare of losing your paper ticket? Gone. Now you have a digital ticket right on your phone. Worried about getting lost in a sea of people? There's a festival app with a GPS map. Fumbling around for cash? Nope. Now you just tap a cashless wristband. And hey, if you can't even make it, you can probably just watch a live stream from your couch. Technology has made the whole festival experience so much smoother and more accessible than ever before.
So, what's next? The festival blueprint is definitely not finished. Organizers today are tackling brand new challenges and dreaming up incredible innovations that are going to shape what festivals look and feel like for the next generation.
It looks like there are 3 huge goals on the horizon. The biggest one is sustainability, figuring out how to make these massive events carbon neutral, meaning they don't harm the environment. Next up is new tech, like using virtual reality so you could attend a festival from your living room. And finally, of course, there's the music itself, which is always evolving, blending rock with other genres to create sounds we can't even imagine yet.
And this quote, it really gets to the heart of everything. The technology will change, for sure. The music will change. The stages will get even crazier. But that core idea that started it all, that simple, powerful desire to just come together with other people and share a love for music, that's the one part of the blueprint that will probably never, ever be erased.
So, from a simple field to a global, high-tech city of sound, the festival has come a really long way. But the story isn't over. The blueprint is like a living document. It's constantly being updated by new artists, new technology, and new fans. So the final question is really for you. As you go out and experience music, what ideas will you bring to the table? What will your generation add to the next page?